Hey, what is up guys? It is Slikk here. I'm back again with another video. In this one, I want to talk about Spider-Man PS4 and the possibility of PSVR being a mainstay feature in the game. With PSX coming up, I figured that it is definitely a possibility. So I wanted to discuss how the gameplay would work, specifically focus on the gameplay of Spider-Man PS4 in VR. Now, what we've seen with, across the board is not only with PlayStation exclusive games, but also non-PlayStation exclusive games, like Batman Arkham, for instance, and also Star Wars Battlefront. We've seen story modes exclusively in VR, made particularly and exclusively for PlayStation VR, and I think that that is definitely a possibility for Spider-Man PS4. And although I do not believe the entire game or story will be playable in VR, and I'll talk about that logistically, why that's not really possible, we can talk about how, there could be, a 1 hour story, a VR exclusive story thing that could be really damn cool to watch. So let me first just be honest here. I personally do not plan on buying PSVR. If I am going to buy, a PlayStation product in the next year, it's going to be the PlayStation Pro. And they're about the same price as the PSVR. But let's make something also very clear, that PSVR sold a lot of units. A ton of people bought PSVR. It blew out of the water PlayStation's and Sony's own expectations for the console. So at this point, they sort of have an obligation, right? So they got what they wanted. Now they have to deliver on their promise. And that is amazing games for the VR system, which I would personally argue it doesn't have right now, to be honest with you. And I think that Spider-Man PSVR can really learn from Batman Arkham VR, which told a very convincing and compelling story, but was overall very underwhelming from a gameplay perspective. And that's where I want to approach this video from today, because the gameplay for Batman Arkham VR is pretty much everything that, if you think about a VR Batman game, pretty much everything that you think would be cool about a Batman VR game isn't in the game. Okay, so grappling on the rooftops, running on the rooftops, fighting people, driving the Batmobile in VR, driving the Batwing, pretty much all of those things you can't do. The only thing I can maybe imagine that's in your dreams of a Batman VR game is riding down to the Batcave or, seeing Alfred, in VR, and those things are actually in the game. Other than that, the game is pretty underwhelming in my personal opinion, again, from a gameplay perspective, and I think that it would have been very cool to implement some combat aspects into the game, and, just overall, just some more, interactive stuff. It very much so didn't feel like there was much of a game there at all, more so a demo. But it's not necessarily Rocksteady's fault, okay? And that's where I want to get into why they could never make the entire game in VR only like a 45 to a 1 hour story, which I think would still be cool nonetheless. And the problem with it is that PS Move, the camera or whatever, is what records your movement of the two joysticks and that VR headset. It cannot, however, see behind you. And of course, if we're playing as Batman, if we're playing as Spider-Man, we're going to be fighting people and in the middle of it, and they're going to try to circle around us, the thugs or the bad guys. And if we turn around behind us to punch somebody, the move camera will not pick us up. So since there is no 360-degree apparatus that can actually track your motion, when you turn your back to the move camera behind you, they're not going to see those little blue LED lights, and it will lose not only where you're looking, but it will also lose control of the movement and that sort of thing. So that's one of the big reasons there's no combat in these games, and why I would maybe argue that this VR headset and the whole PSVR isn't all that well suited for actual gameplay with superhero video games such as Batman or Spider-Man, which are really dreams for all of us, right? I think we all just have a dream, even when we're younger, of like being Batman or being Spider-Man, swinging on the the rooftops above in New York. And it's just sort of unfortunate that that is the way that it is. I mean, I think there's definitely a way for the move camera to pick it up. Right now it's basically just LED light technology. I think that if you do some like thermal infrared stuff, I think that you could actually pick it up even if the back is turned to the camera, but that's neither here nor there. That's not what they have, and you have to keep the price down. But here's the thing, you could still make a very compelling story, and without any combat segments, because with Spider-Man PS4, and again, what was lacking in Batman VR is the ability to grapple and be on the rooftops and that sort of thing, which they could remedy in Spider-Man PS4, just without the aspect of web slinging behind you, which you're not going to need to do. So face forward the whole time, but web sling, and you have the two move cameras in your hands. You press R2, a very accessible button, to web sling, and then you deploy your web slinger, and you can see it in from your perspective. You're Spider-Man swinging 60 stories above. If you look down, you'll get heights. If you have a fear of heights, you'll see it. You'll see the street below. You can die if you let go, and also, you know, you're just swinging above the rooftops. I think it would be really, really cool. And again, the limitations for PSVR are very real from a combat perspective, but that doesn't mean there couldn't be fulfilling and compelling gameplay. Moreover, you know, finding somebody to interrogate or whatever, and, you know, using your hands essentially to basically put them in, like, you know, a web cocoon, or, you know, in a web, you know, a spider web, of course, or something like that, and then, you know, interrogate them, or and I just think playing it from the perspective of Spider-Man would be something that's really cool, and is something that could be fulfilling even with the limitations that exist for PSVR. So again, I think that combat, maybe besides like a few or two, you know, one or two people, is pretty limited, but you can still have the web slinging aspect and have an awesome story, and be in Peter's apartment, much like we were in the Batcave with Batman Arkham VR, be in his apartment, and you know, talk with Mary Jane, and then, you know, put on the Spidey suit, and you know, go out on patrol and swing, and you actually partake. You are playing that. And as I mentioned, one of the big things that was disappointing about Batman Arkham VR is that you felt like a spectator through a lot of the game. So when you get Penguin and you hang him upside down, you're not really participating in that. You don't actually do anything. So, you know, my intent of the game is you actually, you know, pull out your right hand, you aim the bat claw at, you know, Penguin's feet, and you hang him upside down. I think that they could improve on that. It seemed like just a little bit of laziness, probably time constraints. I'm not saying Rocksteady's a lazy studio, because they're not, but it seemed like it in that instance. But I think that if you really put a lot of time into the VR, if that's something they're serious about, they can make a badass PSVR Spider-Man experience. Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comment section below, and also let me know if you would like to see Spider-Man PSVR, if you are hoping that Insomniac is focusing wholeheartedly on the original 2D version of the game. Okay, once again, hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you all in the next one.